One of the best shows, and what I kind of wanted to talk to you about this evening, among other things, is one of my favorite shows that I heard you do was the it's part of the Living Moon, but it was the soul harvesting from the moon, and we're kind of just like an incubator here on Earth.
Yes. First of all, there's a billion Earths identical to this one. If you were to go to any of those other ones, you would walk around. The only thing would be different would be the streets would be a little different and the addresses would be different, but everything else would be the same. Now,
wow.
Earth, all these billions of Earths are essentially a prison. And the reason we're here is because in our past life, and we've all lived hundreds of lives spanning hundreds of thousands of years, in our last life, we did something wrong. And we're sent down to Earth to pound rocks, essentially to learn how to live our lives with integrity and without envy, hate, or greed, and to express our love to each of our family members each and every day. There's nothing else. Nothing else counts. Not the amount of money you make, not the amount of girls you make, not anything except living your life with integrity and without envy, hate, or greed, and expressing your love to your family. Now, if you succeed, and what happens is when you die, the blood drains from your body, and the blood is what holds the soul in your body. And so the soul comes out, and it's directed to the fourth dimension, which is what we call heaven, but it's hundreds of times, thousands of times more delightful. And what we do is you're met by the person you believe in. If you believe in Jesus, if you believe in Buddha, if you believe in Allah, and in my case, I believe in the Great Pumpkin, they're the ones that meet you
right
when you leave Earth, and they take you to meet or re-meet all of the people that you've known in your previous hundreds of lives. And you get a half an hour to an hour with all of them, renewing all old acquaintances, remembering great times. And then you are led to a room where you have a life review. And in the life review, you're shown a three-dimensional recording of every second of your life. There is nothing that they miss. The people are so shocked to find out that no matter what secret they think they have, E.T. knows everything, and it's all recorded just like in a movie. So what they want to find out is if you learned how to live your life with integrity and without envy, hate, or greed, so that they can make a decision. And I don't know exactly who makes the decision, but so that they can make a decision on whether you have to come back to Earth and pound more rocks, which is essentially a euphemism for learning how to live your life with envy, hate, or greed, or whether you get to stay in the fourth dimension, which is heaven. Now, if you get to stay in heaven, you get to spend a couple of lifetimes there, and then you can make the decision on whether you want to go to a higher dimension, to the fifth dimension, to the sixth dimension, or anywhere up. The number of dimensions is infinite. And these are concepts that are very difficult for humans to grasp because they can't understand that they've lived hundreds of lives. They can't understand how their entire existence has been recorded, and they can't understand how the number of dimensions can be infinite. Basically, the universe is infinite. All this stuff that our scientists and NASA put out about it being the Big Bang, all that stuff is just pure BS. The universe is infinite. It's always been there, and it always will be there. And it's so big that there's no way that we humans can grasp can't measure it in miles. You can't measure it in time. It's infinite.
Right.
So basically, that's what happens. And there are several soul transmission stations, both on Earth and on the Moon. And depending on where you're going in your next lifetime, is which transmission station takes over. Now, several years ago, or maybe 20 years ago, Richard Hoagland came out with a video called Moon Mars Connection Part 2, and in it he showed the tower that's in the middle of Mosting A, which is dead center of the moon. In other words, the moon is in rotational lock, and it always has one side pointed towards Earth. We never get to see the other side except for the pictures that NASA takes. And I have a real nice collection of pictures of the far side.
Because standing on the lunar surface, photographed by Lunar Orbiter 3 in February of 1967, extending 1.5 miles above the moon, there is a shard of something, casting a shadow out across the lunar surface. This is a resume mark on the photographic film. We'll get to the details of why that's important a little later on. The fact is that under the standard model of the moon, under the incessant bombardment which has cratered every object we have photographed all across the solar system, this object literally cannot exist. There's nothing to have formed it, and if some freak of nature had created it billions of years ago, when the astronauts' moon rocks tell us the last datable geological activity from within the moon took place, the billions of years of incessant bombardment should have obliterated it from the landscape. It should not be standing as a spire, a kind of a dumpy spire, 1.5 miles above the moon.
And let's be honest, Max, we are seeing, and I know you have spoken about this plenty of times. There is ample evidence, or at least circumstantial, let me put it this way. It's hard to really prove that, but we do seem to live in a sort of simulation, or at least there is a grid that's being imposed on prime reality. And we see this because this grid is breaking up at times. It's having glitches. We see people that don't look like people. We see people that just freeze. And even these quote unquote leaders seem to have been replaced, or seem to be, maybe holograms. I don't know. I'm just throwing stuff out there, because what I do know is I do not experience reality in the same way I have 20 years ago. I've changed, but it's a shit show. We don't know if Putin is Putin. We sure know Biden is not Biden. So we have all these elements. So the question is, for me, if we go a little higher out, what is the purpose of these resets? And are we actually at a stage where we might break up this matrix, this simulation, with consciousness? This is, for me, the main question. Can we do that? What do you think?
I think we can. And I think that we are at a really crucial point. And I think one of the main purpose of this is soul harvest. It's a soul trap. The well of souls that I've talked about before. I mean, as I've said, if you can get people so locked into a false reality that they're putting on glasses and they're in this virtual world, and really what attaches your soul to your vessel, the vessel that you're in, like it's the I am, the awareness. I am John, I am Max, I am here in this world, I exist. Your soul is attached to that I am. If they can get you in a mainframe and get you in a virtual world where you still believe I am, then your soul is still attached to that. And it's a place that I believe is called the Well of Souls. And the whole talk of wanting to bring this huge demonic entity into being, Satan, whatever you want to call it, whatever you believe it is, apparently it needs a certain amount of souls to do that. And I think that's what they do. They trap people into the mainframe. And I think they've done this before. And I think that's why it's so difficult to wake a lot of people up, is because they're already in the mainframe. I think half the people out there aren't even real people. They're just minds, consciousness that's driving an avatar that thinks that they're real, but they're not. They're not really alive. They're in the mainframe already. And I think that's what all this is about. And of course, you're not going to get all the people to do it, so you need to depopulate. It's like a people farm. You got to have all of this excess stuff around. It's like the corn flour in the stew to thicken the stew. But there's only really a certain amount of real conscious people in here. And they want those souls. They want those conscious souls. They want them trapped in that mainframe. That's where they get their energy from. It's like a flame. It's like a fire. It's like electricity for them. It's the energy they need to power this demonic, whatever it is they're creating. That people will have all different religious concepts about what it is. I don't even go there. I just know it's a powerful, energetic, conscious force that exists, and it's the other side of what we're really connected to. They're trying to disconnect us from that and get us into the mainframe. That's what I think a lot of it is about. And I think that we have an opportunity to actually get through it this time. I think this is going to be one of the last resets that they do. Because even when I look at the world, and I mean, it gets very esoteric for a lot of people. You go back, I mean, looking at the giant trees that used to exist, the silicon trees that are now tabletop mountains, the silicon life that used to exist, the giants that used to be here, the water canopy that Jason talks about that used to be overhead, which would make it possible for things to grow to enormous sizes, and which is also talked about in the Bible and all sorts of places. You'll find references to a water canopy, what caused the great flood when the canopy fell, all of this sort of stuff, rain for 40 days and 40 nights, blah, blah, blah. And the story of the great flood exists in all cultures, in all countries. So we know there has been events like this. Whether there's been more than one, we don't know. But I think every time they do this, they reduce us as well, reduce us in size. As I've said, we think we're so big and we think we're this and we're that. I think we're tiny. We're like the fairies, but we've lost our wings. And we're running around in long grass thinking that these are trees, but they're not. They're long grass. The trees were the silicon trees, the giant tabletop mountains that went up for miles. I don't think anything is what we're told. And like I've said before, I think we're basically living on the floor of a mine. And that as they're mining the earth, they need smaller and smaller people with smaller and smaller machines to get all the fine stuff out there. So we're at the point now we're like a tenth the size or 100th the size of what we originally started off as being. So, and I think this is the last reset.